We are live on DSTV, channel 421, Go TV 144. I am Ernest Minu. Welcome to Joy News Prime. Our headlines: authorities in Togo declare a state of emergency following recent jihadist attacks as border communities bordering Togo and Burkina Faso want government to deal with the imminent threat of terrorism.
I use this road only in the daytime. After 5 p.m., the road becomes very scary. These days, we do not want to be taken by chances, so I have limited my working hours, and this has affected my work.
We have more as government identifies the northern part of Ghana as a potential spot for terrorist attacks as it takes steps to ensure the security and monitoring of the area. Also here on Joy News Prime, Parliament cracks the whip on the Finance Ministry as the Speaker announces a freeze on all businesses from the ministry following failure of Ken Ofriata to show up in the House today.
Direct the committee not to consider the business until the minister fulfills the request of the House. I will go further to say that until the answer is provided, until we go through the accountability process.
Also coming up, National Chairman of the Opposition NDC labels the Kufuor administration as insensitive to the plight of Ghanaians.
For me, I think the government has stopped thinking. The government has simply stopped thinking because they seem to have thrown their hands in despair and have put the country on autopilot.
Thanks for staying with us here on Joy News Prime. Now, as threat of terrorism emanating from the Sahel region becomes imminent, border communities in Ghana bordering Togo and Burkina Faso are asking government to improve the economic conditions. Now, the residents fear a possible spillover of jihadist violence and infiltration from neighboring countries. Authorities in Togo have declared a state of emergency after jihadist militants killed 8 soldiers and wounded 20 Togolese nationals just last month. There have been series of protests in Burkina Faso following a wave of similar attacks, which has claimed at least 6 lives. Residents in border communities here in Ghana believe government can tackle the creeping insurgency if the poor socio-economic conditions are addressed. Correspondent Elias Utanko reports.
On the 3rd of this month, almost 3 weeks ago, the Ministry of National Security passed on a presumed intelligence to the local security and defense services in the northeast and upper east regions, alerting them to suspicious movements of a group of persons along a mountainous area that borders the Bumpurbu, Nakpanduri, and Garu districts. The intelligence indicated that these suspicious men were seen transiting the area on motorbikes, wearing turbans to hide their faces. The 2 districts are separated by the Gambagas camp, which runs northeast from Nakpanduri and extends eastwards to the border with Togo. The N2 road, locally known as the Nakpanduri-Garu-Boku road, is the major route that links the 2 districts. The regional authorities, in response to the security alert, quickly deployed armed personnel to the area in an operation to search and intercept the suspicious men. However, 3 weeks after the incident, the identity and whereabouts of the men are yet to be established by the security services. Although nothing dramatic, or so it will seem, has since occurred in the area, the incident, coupled with the recent jihadist attack on neighboring Togo, in the border towns and villages in an increasing state of fear and uneasiness. For residents of Nakpanduri and its environs, they appealed to the government to establish a mobile security patrol outpost in the Gambagas camp and fix the Nakpanduri-Garu-Boku road. Over the years, criminal gangs have already taken advantage of the weak presence of the state security forces and the poor condition of this road to increase the number of robberies, smuggling, and other illegal activities favored by poorest borders.
We are afraid because the road is not good, so if I have to pass it will be difficult. You saw me, I've seen the Sova Dam suffering, so it's difficult. So we are just praying, so this will make the road nice for us.
I'll go to farm with my father. Without not my father, I will not go. And I always fear. Do you have the control of it?
Because the road is just this way, Like when you come, you slow down and they say park one side. By the time you park one side, the policeman will come and stand on the way. They will refuse to come there. The time they send the money, they will come, ask, what about them, what about them?
We are now very much afraid traveling on this road. That's why for me, I use this road only in the daytime. After 5 p.m., the road becomes very scary. These days, we do not want to be taken by chances. So I have limited my working hours, and this has affected my work.
The latest attack in Togo was Thursday morning. Our Northeast correspondent, Ilyasu Tanko, has details.
Attack occurred this morning around 3 a.m. and the shooting continued. In fact, we understand these are terrorist elements who engaged the forces in Togo, the security forces in Togo around 3 a.m. and the fighting continued up to 6 a.m. We are learning that this particular incident actually happened on the border with Burkina Faso, Ghana as well, just very closer to our territory in Ghana here. What we are learning is that there have not been any casualties. The authorities have they have been able to assess the area as I speak to you now, and they are now conducting the assessment of this attack. But our sources in Togo, which is closer to the border with Ghana, says that this particular attack didn't cost the life of anybody. That particular, we are yet to confirm that from authorities. And so, yes, this is what happened this morning in Togo. But you remember, this is the third terrorist attack in Togo. Just last month, on the 11th, there was a terrorist attack at a community called Panja, which is also closer to the border with Burkina Faso. This particular attack led to the killing of 8 Togolese soldiers and the wounding of several others. We understand 15 of the attackers were killed. And in November last year, there was also attack. That particular attack was non-fatal. Nobody died in that particular attack. And this morning, we are learning of another attack, which we are yet to get the full details for now.
That's our Northeast Region correspondent, Ilyasu Tanko, who has been following up on incidents regarding terrorism in the neighboring countries. And the latest was the update he gave us from Togo. Let's go onto the phone lines now and speak to the President and CEO of the Institute for Security, Disaster and Emergency Studies, Dr. Ishmael Norman. We're grateful, sir, for your time here on Joy News Prime. Let's start with the latest incident recorded this morning. What do you make of the attack? It is not the first in Togo. It is the latest in the series. What's your assessment of what's happening?
Ernest, thank you for inviting me. I think it is quite worrying that Togo, a small country, has been attacked by terrorists 3 times in a short while. So it is very difficult to understand what the motivation is for the attack. And I really don't seem to understand why, except to make some kind of supposition that they presume that Togo is a weak, small country, and so they can attack it. But Togo is not a weak, small country at all. It has a lot of soldiers, so I really don't understand. I don't want to say that the opposition could have been involved in getting them to do these kinds of acts, because it has happened before. In the 80s, the United States government actually got the Taliban started with Osama bin Laden because they couldn't fight the Mujahideen, because they couldn't fight the Taliban. And that resulted in a situation that created Osama bin Laden. And then we all know the history of it. So if something like this if these terrorists have been co-opted by the local opposition because they've been fighting for a very long time, more than 25 years now, trying to make inroads into changing the government in Togo. If that is what is happening, then we have a very serious development on our hands.
And that brings me to the next issue. This is very, very close to home. What does this mean for our strategy in combating the potential threat? Because we have it in Togo, there's in Burkina Faso. We've not seen any visible threat yet in Cote d'Ivoire, but this is very close.
Yes, it is very close. And it means that central government has to be a bit more inclusive in its decisions, in its governance system. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. And so that brings us to a very dicey issue. How do our military and security organizations prepare in case we have incursions like this? And should we then begin to suspect that such an event will have to be with the cooperation of internal forces, not necessarily the opposition parties, but the internal forces? Because what is happening in Togo has to have a nexus to internal forces within Togo. If it's Nigeria, I can understand the etiology of Boko Haram and the Nigerian defense killing their leader and then creating Boko Haram and leading to where they are in 2009. But in Togo, we haven't had this kind of direct confrontation or offensive action against the terrorists. So it makes it very dicey situation. And I don't know really how we can lay our hands on the core issue so that we can design the strategies for intervention.
But already we have a campaign which is underway. It's been running for a few weeks. What will be your assessment of that campaign? How good have we fared?
The campaign is good for internal consumption, for Ghanaians' preparedness. The campaign by National Security is very, very good. Minister of Defense, very, very good. But let's put it aside. If the terrorists decide to attack us, the campaign will be totally irrelevant. Because, for example, in Togo, the last attack happened at 3 a.m. when even soldiers, some of them, who are even on night sentinel, will be probably tired and exhausted because of the circadian effect or rhythm on the human body. So at that hour, unless you have prepared to attack at that hour, a soldier on sentinel duty may not even be that alert. And so our whole security system has to be on a 24/7 alertness. That is not reasonable.
Well, we'll leave it here. I'm grateful that you could join us. That's Dr. Ishmael Norman. He's a security analyst joining us on the recent terrorist attack in Togo and what it means for our safety and security here. But the campaign is underway. If you see something, say something. Let's do some other stories now. Business from the Finance Ministry to Parliament has been put on hold until the Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, accounts to the House how government expended COVID-19 funds. The ruling of the Speaker, Alban Badmin, followed the push from the Minority Leader, Haruna Idrisu, who argued that the Minister is taking the House for granted. Parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante has more on the following report.
Members of Parliament were taken by surprise when other paper showed that the Minister of Finance will not be appearing to answer questions as scheduled. The absence of Ken Ofori-Atta delayed the day sitting for more than 2 hours, whilst leadership of the House tried to resolve the issue. When the House convened, Deputy Minority Whip Ahmed Ibrahim raised the issue first on the floor.
He was supposed to come last week. He didn't come. We programmed him for this week. Today too, Mr. Speaker, the questions have disappeared from the other people. And the Minister of State responsible for finance is not in the chamber. Mr. Speaker, if we tolerate that culture where Parliament says tomorrow I'm doing this, we come and we give excuse. The Parliament of Ghana cannot be giving excuses. And therefore, whoever has business to be transacted in this house must take us serious.
But the majority side pushed back.
We should reschedule his appearance. So I am aware that the minister currently has also related through the majority leader to your good self that we should reprogram his appearance today to next week, Wednesday.
The House was suspended by the Speaker in an attempt to resolve the issue, but the minority was still not backed down on their demand. According to Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu, business relating to the Finance Minister should be suspended until the Minister appeared before the House.
The Minister for Finance must demonstrate respect to the Parliament of Ghana. He cannot be coming as and when he chooses or when he is available. No. This is the Parliament of Ghana. We are elected. We are not appointed. We are not appointed to be sitting here. And we are demanding those accountability in the interest of the Ghanaian people and donors, that he comes to account for 19.7 billion COVID money he received. I think that we should stay off action of matters related to the Minister for Finance, and we demand that he comes in person.
But Majority Leader Osei Chairman Sabonsu explained that the minister was not running away from accountability.
The minister responsible for finance is not running away from accountability. Let nobody rush to that conclusion. The minister is not running away from accountability.
The bulk of the questions Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta was expected to answer are related to COVID-19 expenditure. According to the minority, government has not shown transparency in how they've managed COVID expenditure. So the minister should come to the House and brief them and the country on how much have been expended on COVID-19 expenditure since Ghana recorded its first cases. Speaker Alban Bagbin, in his ruling, stated that he did not want ministers to take Parliament for granted. And so until Ken Ofori-Atta, Finance Minister, appears before the House to answer questions on how much government have expended on COVID-19 and also the general accountability on those funds, no business will be considered from that ministry in the House, including a $1 billion loan facility that the ministry was seeking from Parliament.
Please, I want to reiterate. When questions are asked of ministers, we expect the ministers to be here to answer the questions. And Order 61 is very clear on that. Let me say that this House can decide that we will not allow a minister to present or lay business before the House. Direct the committee not to consider the business until the minister fulfills the request of the House. I'll go further to say that until the answer is provided, until we go through the accountability process, we will not take that motion.
From Parliament, let's head to the court now, because the Health Minister, Kojo Manu, on Thursday failed to show up in court to testify in a case filed by the Attorney General against the former Deputy Finance Minister, Dr. Kezelato Forson. Director of Public Prosecution Yvonne Atakra Obobisa told the court the minister had an urgent meeting to attend, hence his failure to show up. Mr. Kojo Manu is the state's third witness in the case against Dr. Forson. Now, Dr. Forson has been charged with causing financial loss to the state over the importation of some 30 ambulances that form part of a consignment of 200 under the contract signed between the ministry, that's the Ministry of Finance, and the Dubai-based firm Big C Limited in 2012. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has the rest of the story.
Justice Efia Saribotre had earlier indicated that should the health minister fail to show up to testify, the state would have to call another witness to testify. The state had already indicated that 5 witnesses, including the health minister, will be called upon. But Mr. Kojo Manu is supposed to be the third witness. A Director of Public Prosecution, Yvonne Atakra Obobisa, on Thursday informed the court that Mr. Kojo Manu was unavailable. Concern from the court was to the effect that they should have prepared another witness to come in, but the DPP explained that the absence was on short notice and that even yesterday, late night on Wednesday, they had actually had pre-trial conference to prepare the minister to testify. The court, on a reluctant note, with the judge indicating that at the next date, if this should happen again, she's not going to tolerate that, because the option should be that if the minister will not be coming, another person should be called upon by way of the prosecution's listed 5 witnesses to come and testify. So the matter has been adjourned to June 28, with the expectation that Mr. Kojo shows up to testify or another prosecution witness shows up to testify in this ambulance scandal. For Joy News from the Law Court Complex, my name is Joseph Akable.
The former finance minister says government expenditure on the National Cathedral project is against the spirit of the Public Financial Management Act. Norton MP Samuel Okujeto-Ablakwa, who has been leading a campaign for transparency and accountability, accused the finance minister of failing to seek parliamentary approval. But Ken Ofori-Atta rejected that in an interview with a state broadcaster. Now, speaking exclusively to Joy News, Secretary said the move by government is wrong.
You know, remember we had said that the SDR money, for example, which is being shown as financing, right, we saw it, should come in first because our money has revenue and be appropriated, right? So what the costs included, and is it being spent without Parliament approving that expenditure? Remember, it's only Parliament that can pass the Appropriation Act.
That's a claim. That's
very specific. Right, so any off-budget item. So I think my former boss, President Mahama, mentioned, if you remember, somewhere, and he was virtually roasted when he said, you know, things were being paid as
a even part of the line items.
Well, let me point you to it. You know, you after this show, you go and look at the appendix where the allocation is made to the various ministries and others. You know, and see the line items and see whether you see the cathedral and any ministry.
Nothing.
Yeah, and so. It's against the spirit of the Public Financial Management Act and the establishment of giftness, you know, to facilitate those transactions. You know, but as good as the objective may be, spending out of the budget is against, you know, the...
But why do these things happen, you know, to spend outside the budget? Why will the finance minister give the go-ahead for such, you know, amount when it has not been captured?
Well, I think it's the finance minister who can answer. So, yeah, we push for fiscal discipline, but the straight answer to that is it's only the current regime that can explain, you know, why it wasn't shown. It's against fiscal prudence.
Let's do some politics now. The national chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo, has labeled the Akufo-Addo administration as insensitive to the plight of Ghanaians. He said everything points to the fact that government has stopped thinking, resulting in unforeseen hardship in the country. According to him, the blame on the COVID-19 pandemic for the current hardship is untenable. Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo said these in an exclusive interview with Joy News.
In a situation like this, first of all, you need to assure the people that you are sensitive to their plight and their demand. So you come in with measures that will let the people realize you are thinking about them. You have students going to school, you have workers going to work day in and day out. For instance, in situations like this, you can quickly get high occupant buses. You can provide buses for students. You can say that, look, workers will pay something and join buses to work to and from. If you have a coupon, say 100 Ghana cedis, and you are a student and you are from Legon, come to the circle, go to Accra, join the bus, pay 100 cedis a month. And I've been told that in Germany they are paying about 9 euros, and then you can join the, and then you bring in buses. There is a rail line between Tema and Accra, between Nsaomo and Accra. You rehabilitate it, you put more coaches there. Every 30 minutes or every 1 hour, coach is running, taking workers, I mean,
but all of that is extra cost to the state. At this point, the state also needs to generate revenue. So finding the balance is really the challenge.
The fact of the matter is that first you must be sensitive to the plight of the people. You are there to govern the people. And so sometimes the state ought to show sensitivity to the people. That is why in situations like this, workers are calling for COLA, cost of living allowance. You see, when you are increasing salary by 7% and fuel prices are shooting the roof, how do you expect workers to survive? How do you expect students to survive? How do you expect the ordinary people to survive? So you then come in and say that, look, I am cutting down on this expenditure, I'm cutting down on this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and I'm doing these savings to support the vulnerable and the poor in the society. That is how government should respond when we are in crisis like this. But you are not doing that. You are still using long convoys of 30 to 20, four-way drives. You are still putting a chair in a four-way drive and putting fuel in it. I mean, you must show and demonstrate practically that you are empathizing with the people. The suffering masses, you are empathizing with them. So you are coming out of palliative measures that will reduce the sufferings that the Ghanaian people are going.
On a scale of 1 to 10,
one can say that this government is not showing anything at all, and everybody is blaming COVID. Now COVID is no longer there. I mean, indeed, even in the situation of COVID, we are rather paying instead of getting alleviation from the COVID. We are paying for COVID now on the fuel prices that we are paying. We are paying for COVID tax on fuel. We are paying COVID levy on. Why should we pay COVID levy on fuel now? When, I mean, COVID has rather brought a lot of hardships on us.
Well, government spends during the time, and so it needs to recoup the money. That's the argument.
What did government spend on me?
Free water, free electricity.
I didn't enjoy any free water.
Well, but the masses, it was privileged people like you may not have experienced. But free electricity, I'm sure you enjoyed.
Which masses enjoyed free water and free electricity? Which masses? We are paying it, and we are paying even more now.
Let's wrap up on the economy by just rating the effort of government for me on a scale of 1 to 10.
For me, I think the government has stopped thinking. The government has simply stopped thinking because they seem to have thrown their hands in despair and have put the country on autopilot. And so when they get up, and then whatever the dollar cedi is responding to the dollar, they just get up and then they increase price of fuel. They must find a solution. That is why government is put in place. And so I think that the government has stopped thinking and they are not working. So
now, for example, have also refuted claims that the party is remote controlling their side of parliament.
I think that we have rather given our members of parliament the latitude to operate and take decisions that are in the best interest of the party. This parliament has been there, the leadership have been there for long. They know their left from their right. They do not rely on the party whip to do their work. They rely on the whip system in parliament to do their own work. And I don't think for a moment that the party has been breathing on them to do what is expected of them. They know what is right and they are doing what is exactly right. What I will say is that in a hung parliament, the expectation is that the posture of the government party or the government side in parliament must change. It must be one of more of reconciliation and consensus. And once that approach is exhibited by the government side, I think there will be a reciprocal approach by that of the opposition side.
Have you engaged your members to adapt a very reconciliatory, compromising approach in order to get government business?
Well, we have already said that. When e-levy came, for instance, we said that if they had engaged, you see, because what you do is that when you are doing policy formulation, one of the things that you do is stakeholder engagement. And one of the major stakeholders are parliamentarians, because the bill will end up in parliament. So you engage the other side, especially when you have a hung parliament. You engage the other side and try and get their buy-in, even before you initiate the policy. But if you ignore them and you say that, look, you can go to her, we want to do this and we'll be on our own, and when we finish and you come, whether you like it or not, we'll pass it. With that, you have to blame yourself for the posture that you took from the beginning. So they are in government. Most of the businesses that come to parliament are government business. And the expectation is that they must change their posture. they must try as much as possible to reach out to the other side of the divide and build consensus. And I believe that in Parliament, I think that they build consensus on most of the issues rather than the acrimony that you see. But sometimes it's only when there is disagreement that makes news. But when they agree on things, it doesn't make news. But if you take your time to analyze, issues that are placed before Parliament, you realize that the ones that they agree on consensus are more than the ones that they split hairs on.
Do some more politics as the governing New Patriotic Party gears up for its national executive elections. Prospective aspirants are showing members of dedication and selfless leadership if given the opportunity. In all, 52 prospective candidates have picked up forms to contest various positions and filed as same before close of nominations on Thursday. Samuel Mbua reports.
The upcoming elections of the national executives of the governing New Patriotic Party is anticipated to be keenly contested. A position to look out for is the chairmanship race, where the incumbent Freddie Blay bows out after serving 2 terms. Heavyweights like Professor Mia Kumfi is looking to occupy the position. He believes the party needs discipline.
I think we are guided by the constitution of the party, and using the constitution, we should be able to keep discipline.
Another aspirant for the position is former Attorney General and Minister for Justice Ayikwe Otu, who is propagating the message of unity and inclusiveness.
There is something else we may want to consider. Our party is an all-inclusive party, and we want all people to be on board. So I know you know where I'm coming from.
Asamoah Boateng, popularly known as Asabi, is optimistic the elections will swing in his favor, while Stephen Tim is confident of victory after trying many times.
In all likelihood, people have been bruised. We've stepped on each other's toes. There is the need for unity. We need to appease those aggrieved people before they will all come together to work in unison for the party to move towards breaking the 8.
But current treasurer of the NPP, Abankwa Yeboah, says he has the nod of the people to lead the party. Another position that has attracted keen competition is the general secretary slot, where incumbent John Boydu is seeking re-election.
My campaign is premised on the fact that the New Patriotic Party is at a critical moment, a moment that calls for experienced people, a moment that calls for combination of the youth, women, and the strength of the party in order to liberate the energies of our party people towards victory in 2024.
Former Mayor for Tamale, Musa Superior, is also in the race, hoping to occupy the slot ahead of the current CEO of the Youth Employment Agency, Justin Kodia, who believes he has the backing of the executives.
Going around the country, selling my messages to them and listening to the feedback from the party executive, I'm very positive that come July 17th, the next time you interview me, you'll be interviewing me as the General Secretary-elect of the New Patriotic Party.
On his part, a former presidential staffer, Charles Bisiu, is promising new leadership if given the nod. But Opariansa thinks the time is now for him to take up the mantle. The current national youth organizer, Nana B, is hoping to occupy the national organizer slot because Samia Wuku is no longer contesting. But he faces stiffer competition from the former Tema East MP, Titus Glover. Nana B says the odds are in his favor.
So I can tell you that from the 16 written, the brand Nana B is solid. From the 16 written, we are going to match our profit. We are going to consolidate this one. And I can tell you.
Meanwhile, former Deputy Ghana Ambassador to China, Dr. Charles Jamina, is pledging to raise an average of $60 million for the New Patriotic Party every year if he gets elected as National Treasurer of the governing party. Ahead of his vetting for the primaries next week, the aspirant told my colleague Blessed Suga that he will raise significant amounts which the NPP could even borrow to any future government.
$60 million is the minimum. We always say a minimum of $60 million. So we are very hopeful. I, for one, am very hopeful that we're going to get more than $60 million each year. Because as a party with a database of about 3 million Ghanaians who identify with the party, who are so willing to support the party, provided we remove certain obstacles in their path. I have said and will openly always say that my job will be simply to rally other national officers together so we remove these obstacles. Once we remove these obstacles, each of these 3 million people is more than willing to give us 10 Ghana cedis. These are not members, and as a matter of fact, this is not membership dues. That is a different thing altogether. We are talking about this database of largely self-employed, self-sustainable people who make their own money without any input from the party, but they love it when they support the party. They've been doing so consistently for years. I have stopped for some time now due to these major obstacles I've told you about.
60 million is a lot.
Yes, but you see, if each of these 3 million people is giving us, 10 Ghana cedis a month, how much is that, my brother?
You're watching Joy News Prime with me, Ernest Mino. Still to come, food staff of some caterers under the school feeding program are rotting away as the caterers continue to stay away from the schools demanding payment. We have details of this and more after the break.
Vision of one hot meal for every.
Thanks for staying with us here on Joy News Prime. Now, food staff of some caterers under the school feeding program are rotting away as the caterers continue to stay away from cooking for the school pupils. The withdrawal of service is in demand for an urgent increase in grants for the feeding from 97 pesos to 3 cedis, as well as a delay in payment of grant. And now Jima has been monitoring the situation in the Ashanti region and filed this report.
The school feeding program was initiated in 2005 by government in collaboration with Dutch government, aimed at increasing school enrollment through the provision of one hot meal for every student. It has been sustained for the positive impact on education since inception. In the compound of a home at Eija, caterers are busy cooking for 500 pupils of Eija Basic School. Today, a local delicacy, Tiozafi, is on the menu. The 4 caterers here are busy ensuring the food is delivered at lunchtime. They are the only caterers who have refused to withdraw their services despite the decision by the group.
Considering the food stuff I have in my storeroom, I will run at a loss if I refuse to cook. I cannot return them to the supplier too. It will be prudent for me to use them so that I add it to my claims.
Well, let's do some more on this story. We're joined on the phone by the president of NAT, Mr. Isaac Ozu. Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on Joy News Prime. So the program was introduced to, among other things, increase enrollment. In the face of the strike that we are witnessing and the challenges facing the program, has anything changed as teachers on the ground? Hello, Mr. Osu, if you can hear me, I hope the line to you is better now. I'm asking about what the program is doing to the figures in terms of enrollments. The school feeding program was introduced in order to address that, get more pupils in school and to get them to stay and learn. In the face of the challenges we are recording now, has anything changed? What has been the effect on the ground?
Well, let me say a very good evening to yourself and your cherished viewers. And let me admit that, yes, since 2005 that this school feeding program was introduced at the basic schools, most especially the kindergarten and the primary levels, clearly the enrollment has shot up. If you compare the enrollment prior to 2005 till date, you could see clearly that schools that had this feeding program being run has its enrollment been increased. So presently what is happening is a bit worried to us as partners to the educational delivery.
Has it affected the numbers now?
Now what is happening is that, most of the public schools, especially those in the rural settings, the children find it difficult getting food to eat. If you look at the distance, some of them plow before getting access to their schools. Yeah. When it is break time and the child wants to go back to the house to get something, it will be very difficult for this child. So this feeding is something that is sustaining the children throughout the time that they spend in the school. So when the caterers begin to stop cooking, definitely it affects the children. And when it affects them, it makes lesson delivery also difficult for the teachers. So I think those in authority should quickly do what is expected of them so that at least the children can go back. Because we are even thinking of this feeding to be extended to the children at the JHS level. Because if you look at the children at the secondary school, even the day students are being given one hot meal in the afternoon. The children at the kindergarten and the primary schools are being fed one hot meal. But if you go to the JHS, the children are not being fed. So we are even thinking that the government will expedite action to make sure that those at the JHS are also brought on board so that at least the children can get enough strength to go through their lessons.
Very finally and briefly, this has persisted for a while. Do you already see a change in learning outcomes?
Yes. If you take a critical look at the schools that this feeding program is going on there, you get the children in their numbers in school. But once the caterers stop feeding them, the children, most of them do not come to school again.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it here. I'm grateful for your time. That's Isaac Owusu, he's president of NAT, bringing us their perspective on the ongoing challenges facing the school feeding program.